And now, Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have two guests right now, friends from college who've been doing some pretty exceptional work out there. They saw a need and they just jumped in and did something about it. We've got Jono Klein and we've got Bharath Katragadda. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you for
Thank you
having me.
so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, great work that you're doing. Back in November, let's start with what you were doing. You saw a need. There were a lot of people who simply couldn't get to the voting booth, and especially older people. And you jumped in and you formed what's called Vote Saver, which was pretty extraordinary. I'll have you explain what that is. And now, of course, we've got the vaccines out, but a lot of people can't get their vaccines. They can't get to their vaccines, and we can't even get them distributed to people. So you quickly pivoted and you just recently formed something called Vax Saver. And it's just now in its infancy, but I think it's going to go somewhere really fast. So let's first talk about what you did in November about Vote Saver. What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, coming into the November election, John and I were reading a bunch of articles about how, there's been a lot of long lines recently, and this was only going to be exacerbated, right, with COVID at the polling centers. And, because of these long lines, this would deter people who had a high COVID risk, or, like people like the elderly or essential workers like healthcare workers who just didn't have the time, to show up and wait in these long lines at the polling centers. What we thought was, there's so much excitement, so many young people that want to help out in this election. Is there a way to bridge that gap? So that kind of is what started Vote Saver. John, you want to explain what we did?
Absolutely. So what Bharath and I started doing is we came back to Los Angeles and asked everyone to get involved that we knew. And people started signing up to actually go and stand in long lines at the polls. And we basically partnered with health systems like UCLA Health and other nearby systems in the Los Angeles area so that we could basically tell their healthcare workers to come to the nearby polling stations where we'd have our volunteers standing in line so they wouldn't have to wait in line. So once they
That's
got to the
incredible.
station, they said, hey, I'm UCLA Health, for instance. And we said, okay, we're going to escort you right to the front.
That's incredible. So give me an idea of what that looked like. So you had elderly people, and instead of standing in those massive lines, they were able to not cut through, but get through to the very front of the line because of what you did.
Yeah, so basically, we had our
Wow.
own volunteers standing in lines, in these long lines at the polls. And what we would do is, as soon as someone who was an elderly person or an essential worker or a US veteran come up into the polling station, we had a sign there that said, Vote Saver, we're here for you. And we would basically escort that person to our volunteer who was closest to the front of the line, and they would swap. It was already pre-approved by the polling centers, and they would basically be able to cast their ballot within 10 minutes and leave instead of waiting in hours-long lines.
That's pretty incredible, gentlemen. And where did you do this? Obviously in Los Angeles, but elsewhere as well, right?
Yeah, so we also were able to support teams outside of Los Angeles in areas such as San Francisco, Phoenix, near our alma mater in New Hampshire, as well as New York City.
You're both Dartmouth grads. What did you major in, and what do you do now that you're out there working? Because you also have a side job, right? What are you both doing? I'll start with you, Jono.
So I was an engineering major and also majored in data science. And that's actually, I met Bharath through engineering and we started working on projects together. And Bharath, I'll let
Wow.
you.
Yeah, so I graduated with a degree in economics as well as kind of had a modification in engineering sciences, and currently John and I are both consultants.
Right. But I mean, you've got to have a mind for being able to, facilitate from going from point A to point B. That's a really tough task. I mean, how did you even start this initially? Did you reach out to everybody you know? I mean, how did it begin?
Well, I would just note that the thing that brought Bharath and I together as college students was
Yeah.
the fact that we were both interested in solving problems in the world, and that's what
Yeah.
motivated us to both get involved with engineering and social entrepreneurship and starting projects in international development and just working on multiple projects throughout college together that really excited us about what we could do in the world. So once we started working and saw that we could potentially have some time outside of work to focus on something socially entrepreneurial, we just started looking for problems in the world that we felt really motivated to help on. And the first thing that came to us as soon as we really got started was this voting problem.
How many people do you think you helped?
Yeah, that's a great question that we get all the time. So the thing is, we didn't keep track, right, of every single vote that we
Right.
saved, but we had 250 volunteers, and anecdotally, like on average, people were saying they could help between 3 or 4 people. So we were potentially set up, right, to save at that point, right, between 700 to 1,000 votes, but the exact number we don't have a tally of.
But what, honestly, to even think that way, and as you said, social entrepreneurship, now more than ever, do we need this kind of thinking out there? So let's pivot a little bit to what's going on with the vaccine. It's there, but we can't get it into anybody's arms, whether they're elderly, even first responders can't necessarily get them in the timely fashion that they should. They're sitting in freezers, these vaccines. Hopefully they'll be okay. And that there's no issues there. So what did you do? You formed what's called now VaxSaver. I love this, from Vote Saver to VaxSaver. Talk to me about VaxSaver.
I mean, I think you hit it right on the head, right? Where what Bharath and I realized through the Vote Saver experience is we can see pretty clearly things that are happening in the world that don't make any sense. Why is this an issue? In the Vote Saver case, why are lines at the polls so long? In this case, why is distribution so challenged for the vaccine, and why aren't people that are highest risk getting the vaccine as soon as possible? So we're just seeing these problems and saying to ourselves, why isn't anyone stepping in and actually doing something to help? And part of the problem with the world we live in is that oftentimes if it's not going to bring profit, people aren't going to do any problem solving. And what we think to ourselves is, let's just get involved. Let's put together some people, some volunteers, some friends to help solve a problem, and hopefully that will create an impact and lead us somewhere we have no idea. That could be great.
Already, I mean, you must have connections over UCLA, right? Because you worked with them with the whole Vote Saver thing. So have you started there at least to try and get the word out there? How do you go about this? It's a huge undertaking. I mean, clearly our government can't quite figure it out. So what are you doing?
Absolutely. I mean, like you're saying, like there's a lot of different parties involved, and we've already reached out to people within our network to get those initial conversations going. And kind of from initial read, what we're understanding here is there's some areas where they have kind of an overflow, right, of vaccines, where they have
Right.
vaccines that may not be used because they're already able to vaccine all the people they've been allocated for. And then there's other areas where the people you're saying, right, first responders, healthcare workers who should be getting this vaccine for whatever reason, problems with distribution, don't have immediate access to it. So what we see ourselves doing is just kind of bridging that gap.
How do you do that though, when the government can't even figure it out? I mean, easily. Look, firstly, let's just talk LA County, for example, one of the worst counties in the entire country, right? That's big. And they should be able to put it into the arms of every first responder who wants it and every elderly person, and they just can't figure that out. I mean, and they've admitted that they didn't quite do the right steps, so they're sort of stuck. How can you get involved with that issue? How can you get into the middle of it and try and break it up, if you will?
I think the way we look at it is it always starts with the need. And anecdotally, we're hearing from really the highest risk groups, whether it's healthcare workers or really old people that are high risk if they actually get the disease. We're hearing that they're unable to access a vaccination, a dose immediately. And even if the doses should be sent for them, they can't find a way to get them, whether it's because their local clinic doesn't have them yet, or they can't get on a list, or they can't go to a different clinic. We're not sure exactly why yet, but we always have to start with the need. What are these people facing that they're currently unable to get what they need? And
go ahead.
That's exactly what we've started doing, talking to these people, listening to their experiences. And once you get them in tandem with the other side, which is the healthcare system side, how are they interacting with people? What are they seeing in terms of the distribution challenges? Once you get these two sides, we start to mold a sort of solution set around it. Okay, here's a way we can bring these sides together. Here's a vehicle that we can build to actually have impact in terms of bridging that gap.
Right. And also, I'm sure just reaching out to seeing, how can you get more people working to even administer the vaccines? That's just been one big freeway jam, if you will, from all of this. So that's got to be a difficult task for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head here, right? There's so many different moving parts, and this is also something we've never seen before, right? This
Right,
is
right.
collectively as a society, this is our first time, like in recent history, trying to do something like this. So there's absolutely like a ton of problems involved in it, and it's definitely looking like a traffic jam.
I don't work in this field, so I don't claim to have any answers. But when I look at FedEx or I look at Amazon, they're able to get you your package every day, where it came from to where it's going. It's almost like we need that kind of a system in place. It's like, here's the vaccine. We need somebody to bring it to this facility. And that's what seems to be missing, that perhaps the government or whatever is not able to quite figure that out. So I guess that's where you guys can really help. You seem to know how to know people and can get in touch with people. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, the government is not a private company that works every day in distribution, right? And the
Right,
fact of
right.
the matter is, this is, like Bharath just said, it's such a fast moving, thing that we had no idea how to control. And then the vaccine came out and they're like, okay, let's get the vaccine out to everyone we can. But hold up, they don't actually have the processes and infrastructure in place to make that happen effectively. So I think
Well, look,
it's a case of
okay.
the horse going over the biker going over the handles a little bit, where we just have to slow down and make sure everything's moving according to plan.
I like what you said. We just have to slow down, right? We have to slow down and see where we are and then figure out how we could fit that in. That's actually very, very mature and very well said. Where do you expect to go, since this is you've just developed this, right? Um, what are you expecting? I mean, because you were very successful with Vote Saver, and I know that took a little time to get off the ground too. So what are you hoping for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're going to use the same process, right, that we did with boat savers. We really want to identify where the need is greatest, right? That's why we're having these conversations. That's why we're trying to move so quickly is, we just want to understand where is the problem the greatest and where can we help the most. So that's ultimately where we're going to go.
And the
Mm-hmm.
second piece of that is, setting that intention about what does impact look like? What does success mean for us? And like I said, in Vote Saver, as long as we felt like we could save one vote, as long as one person said to us, look, I might not have voted if it wasn't for this service, that was success. So if we
Mm-hmm.
can define success in this point, in this case, in the vaccination efforts, as if one person who wouldn't have gotten vaccinated, who's high risk of catching the disease, or who would really be impacted if they caught the disease, if we get one of those people vaccinated who wouldn't have otherwise been, that would be success. And I think you just have to start with that intention right off the bat and then think
Mm-hmm.
about how do we make that happen.
Will you guys stay in touch with us? Because this is just the very beginning, right, of Vax Savers, and you're just at the very tip of it. I just want to know where you are in a couple of weeks from now. I really do. And I want to update people. I also want to get people involved. Is there anything you need in particular? What need can we, point people? If we point people to you, what do you need and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'd love all the help we can get. And I think, as this problem changes and as, we, sort of understand how we can help, then we would, definitely love to get more people involved as well.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and please, if there is anyone that wants to get involved, we're setting up our website currently as we're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
We're making sure all of our social handles are set up so that you know exactly where to go, and all of this is going to be under Vax Saver, VAXSAVER. So look out for those updates in the near future, and we would love to, make sure that you're updated, Deborah, because this is going to be evolving very rapidly, and the fact that we have someone to bounce ideas off is really exciting.
We just all have to work together, all platforms, all ages, all everybody, right? That's just how it happens. In fact, I know your mom, Jono, and I know your neighbor, who's wonderful, right? Sharon Feldstein of Your Mom Cares, who's become very friendly, and I work with her at Your Mom Cares. And please give a shout out to her. I'm very grateful that she introduced us, and grateful to your mom too. And just keep up the good work, you guys. Anything else you'd like to say before I let you go?
Absolutely. This one goes out to Sharon Feldstein and also my mom, Diane Shakin. You guys both deserve the biggest shout out. So thank you for bringing us to this point.
Yeah. Thank you both. You're amazing. And we'll just stay in touch. And, I'm going to, put all your social handles out there as well. But Vax Saver, look for that. You could even give them an instant message on Instagram or something, right? I'm sure you answer everything. Just however you can get it out there. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you both very, very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on Deborah Kobylt Live. I'm going to put all this information under our show, and also I'm going to put out a few promos about what they're doing, so maybe you can get involved. That'd be terrific. And thanks for joining us. And everybody, please stay safe, stay healthy out there. There's crazy times going on. And, we'll be reporting back to seeing what they're doing. Again, Vax Saver. And as far as our show, you can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, and anywhere that you get your audio podcasts, you'll find us. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Deborah Kobylt Live. Bye-bye.